And before I introduce our guest, I think I should establish him as the world's richest, best-selling author, correct? And also, he has been described by one person as the world's greatest writer in basic English, and that one person is yourself, Harold Robbins.
Can I make just one correction?
Yes.
I'm not the richest.
Why not, if you're the best-selling?
I managed to spend my money. If you're going to be rich, you got to keep your money. You know? I've never learned the secret.
All right, shall we say the author who makes the most money in the year and spends the most money? Would that be fair?
Maybe.
Do you know, I feel like the amateur here because you've done so many interviews. I know, I think your record was 20 television interviews in less than 1 week. What is the first question that you are usually asked?
How do you account for your being the richest, best-selling?
You got your gun with you in that cowboy outfit so I could just shoot myself right now. Is it going to be tough?
No.
Is it really the first question?
Yeah. People seem to be more interested in, you know, how much I earn from my writing than what I write. And it's really amazing to me because the people who buy the books don't seem to care.
Yeah, but the people who buy the books make it possible for you to become this sort of symbol of success. And I think a lot of people resent the fact that something that is literary is being turned into a kind of commercial output. I'm not saying it's your fault.
Well, they say that about all kinds of art, don't they? I remember I was listening to people complain about Picasso. And they say, you know, he just grinds them out. He's not really an artist. He's a machine, but he was an artist.
Do you think it's impossible to be a bestseller and receive any kind of critical acclaim?
Oh, absolutely.
Why? Why is that?
No, I think it's possible that you can write a bestseller and receive a great deal of critical acclaim. All you have to do is live long enough. I am getting, you know, like tremendous critical acclaim for books that were damned when they were written. As of now, I have 6 novels that are in required American literature thing at 80% of the colleges and universities in America, which when they were originally published were all damned. The novels are Never Love a Stranger, A Stone for Danny Fisher, 79 Park Avenue, The Dream Merchants, The Carpetbaggers, and The Adventurers. Every one of these books, when they were written, were absolutely murdered by the critics. And yet, in last Sunday's New York Times, some professor of literature says that I am America's leading naturalistic writer, whatever that means.
Perhaps part of the resentment comes from the fact that you're even doing a show like this, that you do so many shows, that you sell yourself as well as the books.
The only reason I do shows like this is because I get to meet pretty girls.
Not to sell books?
How can I be selling books? I haven't anything to sell.
Don't you think there is a single member of our audience who is a potential buyer of a Robbins novel? You sell, oh, I've got some, here are my figures. 93 million books have been sold, at least, right, of your books?
Yeah, you're right, but the figures are 2 years old.
103, would you say?
More.
Translated into 37 languages? More? There are new languages in the world now.
2 more languages.
39 languages. That means 6 million books sold every year.
That's about right.
Does this frighten you ever? Because it seems to me that...
What do you mean by frightened?
Well, at this minute, somebody at a bookstore, bang, I bet you 3 books have been sold right now.
I hope you're right. Then maybe I can afford the trip here.
Okay, then. Are you a writer or are you a bookseller? And you know exactly what I mean.
I know what you mean. A writer doesn't write books to be put in a closet for no one to read. A writer, and what people generally forget, is that a novel, like a play or like any other form of written work, is primarily an entertainment. No one wants his work not to be read. You'd rather have it read and damned than not read at all. Mm-hmm. So I'm a novelist. And of course I want people to read the books. And I want them to buy the books.
How closely do you feel about your readership, your audience? Who are they? Do you feel something strong about them? Are you in touch with them?
Well, I get about 10,000 letters a year. which I do not see. It's handled by 2 secretaries in New York because the letters are collected from all over. I don't know who the audience is. I receive letters. I think the bulk of my mail comes from young people running from about 15 to 24. That accounts for about 70% of it. A great deal of it comes from schools where they ask for information, what, background on a particular novel or things that they're working on. The rest of it comes from people who say, you don't have to write all the sex, you don't have to be that specific, or you don't have to depict violence. And I've learned a long time ago, like 10,000 letters a year I can't read, then I wouldn't have any time to work, so I turned it all over to the secretaries. But my audience, I don't know them, because I walk into an airport. For example, 2 weeks ago, I was going to New York from Nice, and there was a stopover at Barcelona. There was 40 minutes, so I figured I'd go in, because I wanted to buy one of those Spanish shawls for my 18-year-old, because I was going on to California to see it. I figured I'd get one of those, what do they call them, mantillas, right? So I stopped in there, and right next to the place where you buy the shawls in the Barcelona airport is a bookstall. And all of a sudden a girl screams, "Senor Robbins," and she says, "Angela, the writer." And they have the books in Spanish. And you look up and you go in and out of airports in the world. It's the greatest feeling in the world, because you don't recognize the titles. Like she was pointing to one called Los Profanadores del Amor, but I don't know which of those books it is unless I check.
Never Love a Stranger.
No?
I think.
No,
No?
that's
The Depths of Love.
Amore something el extraño. Well, anyway, after a while you begin to feel like the only thing you recognize on the covers is, you don't recognize the title, but you recognize the name Harold Robbins. And that begins to seem like Coca-Cola. And
You're a brand name throughout
I'm
the
a
world.
brand name, that's what it is. So I guess I turned into that peculiar kind of freak, where I not only create the product that is to be sold, but I am the product that is sold.
Do you keep a dividing line between the two?
I don't think you can. At this moment, all I know is that 2 days ago, I put the finishing touches on a book, the manuscript of which I delivered today to my publisher, New English Library. The book will come out in October, and it's called The Pirate. And at this particular point, I'm still a writer. Maybe if I come back in October and NEL says, talk about your book, I'll become a salesman. At the moment, I've got nothing to sell.
You're a citizen of what? I know you're an American, but you were mentioning
French
Barcelona. You're in France.
Well, I live half the year in France and half the year in Los Angeles.
Something that's intrigued me is you always pay your American taxes, even though you don't have to.
I'm an American. I have a whole theory about it. I think I resent taxes as much as anyone, but I remember when I was a kid and I was on relief and I was shoveling snow down a manhole on Amsterdam Avenue. I didn't pay any taxes. I didn't make any money either.
Now, when you say Amsterdam Avenue, it means very little to perhaps most people. It means a lot to me. It's
Amsterdam Avenue is a section of New York just a little bit south of Harlem. And it's a very poor area, and they would call work gangs during snow removal squads and pay you 50 cents an hour. This is sort of, like work relief, or what you call it, the dole here or something like that.
Well, I think work relief was something that was
work
essentially American. Let me talk about your childhood, because it's so complex and so peculiar to me. And I think that without hearing about that, we could never understand anything about you. Not that we'll understand that
Well,
much
if you ever
about
understand anything about me, please explain it to me.
No,
It'll
but your childhood does fascinate me. It's a tragic childhood. Or is that overstressing the word?
I think that's because of kind of female sympathy, a mother instinct maybe.
Well, you were
like
abandoned. You were a baby left on a doorstep, weren't you?
Well, in effect, but if you say it's a tragic childhood, who is it tragic for? It certainly was not tragic for me, because I didn't feel abandoned. I grew up in an orphanage, and I was fairly well treated. Not knowing parents, I didn't miss them. you know? At that particular point going through it, I thought I had a normal life because I led the same kind of life that everybody else around me led. It wasn't until maybe I got to be older that I realized it was a little bit different. But I didn't feel any different.
You were brought up in a Catholic orphanage.
That's right.
But you were adopted when you were 15, 14?
No, 11.
But you were adopted by a Jewish couple, is
That's
that right?
Because, well, according to some information I had, there's a possibility that I was Jewish. But under the law, at the time I was found, since they had no real information, the law in New York State then was that children were placed in orphanages in order. Number one in a Protestant, number two in a Catholic, number
What do you mean
three...
in order? As they're lined up on the doorstep? They're...
No, it's a collection system that was controlled by the city. That's gone now. Don't forget, this is over 50 years ago. And so that with every third child, the fourth child would then go, the whole order would start again. Apparently, I came up in a Catholic unit.
Do you think when you were 15 or so and you realized what you had missed out in those first 11 years of life and how uncertain you were about your own...
That's not quite true, because by the time I was 15 and a half, I had enough of family life. I ran away.
Then what happened?
I joined the Navy.
Then what happened?
They found out I was underage and they threw me out.
Then what happened?
And then I came back to New York and worked on the snow.
Shoveling snow. Then what happened?
I started to grow up.
Then what happened?
Oh, it's a long story. I mean, wow.
Oh, Mr. Robbins, you write long stories. You did so much
Yeah,
by
but
the
I've
time
lived
you
a
were
long
21.
time.
Can you cram it in? After the shoveling
Yeah,
snow?
I got a job as a inventory clerk in a food chain, figured out a way to make some money, and I made some. And then I lost it, and I went to work in the warehouse of a picture company. And a few years later, I became a vice president. And then after I was a vice president at the picture company, somebody bought a book, and I said I didn't like it. And they said, what do you know about writing a book? So I wrote a book. And that's how I became an author. There's a capsule story of my whole life.
It's very encapsulated, and it doesn't show the drive that kept you going. I mean, you can't just sit
It wasn't drive
down.
that kept me going, honey. It was, you know, it was like something to do.
When you're busy working as a full-time job, you then write a book in the evenings, at the
Yeah.
weekends. How long did it take you?
About a year.
Now, you say something to do. Are you frightened of not doing anything?
No, I work only about 6 months out of every 3 years.
So really, that first desire to write a book was something more than saying,
Well,
I'll fill up some
actually, it was
hours.
the result of a $100 bet. Because Billy Getz said, you know, you're supposed to know about budgets and signing checks and your responsibilities of finances. You're not supposed to be a judge of literature. I said, I can write a better book than that. He said, I bet you $100. I said, you're on.
Did you make more money out of the bet or the book?
I think the book.
You're still a gambler, aren't you?
Not anymore. I'll gamble with me, but I don't go to the casinos or anything like that anymore. I've had that one. I figured out after it cost me enough money, it's time to quit.
Can we talk about your present lifestyle, which, you know, to the outsider seems so, you know, glorious, glamorous, unobtainable? It's something that just can't happen, but does happen.
It
You've
really
got
isn't-
everything.
Well, it's a very simple lifestyle.
Not 10 cars. You got your 10th car this morning at London Airport. 3 houses. I won't mention 5 wives, or is it 4 wives? I mean, I don't think it's a simple lifestyle.
Well, I don't have them all at once. I mean, the wives.
I think that's very, very ascetic of you.
I don't know. You know, there's something to be said for Muslimism. I think it's much cheaper to put them in another room and ignore them than it is to divorce them.
Well, I was going to ask you, the fact that you have been, is it 4 or 5 times? Because each interviewer has a different story.
It's 5 marriages, 4 wives.
Now, does this mean you're very fond of marriage, of divorce, of women, or of alimony?
Well, actually, 2 of them. 2 of the marriages was kind of an attempt to keep something together. I wanted to keep my custody of my oldest daughter both failed. I didn't keep custody, but I'll tell you something that is unbelievable. It's mind-blowing. When she was 3.5 years old, I lost custody of Karen. That's my oldest daughter.
The one you bought the mantilla for, or not?
Yeah. She just turned 18 last November. Her first decision was to come. Her first decision, responsible as an adult. She came to live with her father. Isn't that wild? It's unbelievable.
I think, to use the young American word, that is beautiful.
Yeah, that's kind of great.
To go back to the more surface things of your lifestyle, fame, success, money, all together, they don't always go together, do they? Fame, success, and money.
I don't know.
Well, you've got them all going. And people who don't have them like to think, well, he's got them, but he's not happy.
On the contrary, I think, why should people think I'm not happy?
No, I don't mean you particularly. I think there is an envy of people who have this lavish kind of
But
life.
I don't. This is I'll tell you another interesting thing, if I can use my daughter as a reference point. Karen, never having really lived with us, came and began to live with us last November. She goes to school. She goes to UCLA in Los Angeles now. And she said something beautiful, just about a month and a half ago. And she said, Daddy, I used to listen to my friends talk about you and the people and what they say and the whole thing and how you live and everything. And I said, Daddy, what they don't realize is that we're a family. And that's what people don't realize. Grace, Adriana, and Karen and I, we go together. If I come to France, we move to France together. We go back to America, we go back together. Sure, I'll go away on a 10-day trip or an 8-day business trip, as I just did. But I'm picking up a car, which is going to be fun for me. Grace is flying up from France this afternoon to meet me here. I flew in from New York this morning. We're a family, and that's kind of important. And people seem to think that because, I choose to live the way I do because I enjoy it, that I'm something else. But we go together. When we go away on the boat, we go together, and those are the things that people don't see because, unfortunately, in the press and in many, many cases, the interviews only take the surfaces.
Yes.
I once gave a party. You have a writer in a newspaper called Donald Zick. Zick? I don't know.
Zick.
He was a nice man, and I was giving a birthday party on the boat for Adriana, who was then 6. And he came down with flew down for this birthday party. Heard it was going to be a very great party on my boat. And he had an aching back, so we fed him with brandy, and I had somebody rub his back for him. I think it was the stewardess or something. And we had this marvelous birthday party with about 30 kids climbing all over the boat, screaming, tearing it apart. A fellow playing piano for them and singing all kinds of things and games. And when he wrote about the story, all he talked about was the pretty ladies on the boat in bikinis. These ladies were the mothers of the children or their nannies, and they were there because the children were there. Mm. And at the end of it, he said, oh, incidentally, this was a birthday party for Adriana. And so people think it's kind of cuckoo.
Well, I must say that I'm just getting out, perhaps, of the trap that you set for yourself, because you said that you are part of the books. Now, the books are hard, tough, rough, very male, driving forces. And one thinks the book is the man. You don't think of, if you'll pardon the expression, a softie lurking underneath that personality.
Well, it isn't a question of softie.
I mean softie in a nice way.
The world is where it's at, I write the scene. I write about the kind of people I see, the things I've seen happen, things that I know, and things I hope I understand and I can translate to people, because, again, novels are communications of a kind. too many people confuse the hero of a novel with the writer. This is an image that has developed over time. Hemingway was the world's greatest expert at creating the macho image.
But he did it intentionally. Are you sure you have not done that?
I don't think so, because first of all, I'm one of the great cowards of all time. The only art of self-defense I know is that Chinese thing called Aikido. Aikido is that self-defense where you relax completely. If someone hits you once, you fall down. You stay down. You don't get up so they can
Tickle
hit you
my
again.
stomach, you say.
You know what I mean? Or if someone makes a motion, run. Now, that's great self-defense. So I've never built up a macho image in that respect.
But what about this world of it's a very immoral or amoral world where sex is unimportant.
Come on,
It's
don't
just
get excited. We're only talking about it.
No, but you write about this world, and people think this is the world you admire. You don't? You hate some of the people you write about.
No, I don't hate them. I think I understand them. I think that these people I write about have both good and bad in them, and that I reflect all those things. If certain particular things stick out in people's minds as against the other things, I think that's normal too, because certain things about my life stand out in their mind. Not all of it. So I think it's kind of a fair view of the scene of the world and the kind of people I write about.
The final question of an interview is always supposed to be, I asked you what the first question should be, and I'd already asked it, cliché, and the final cliché is to say, what are your future plans? I'd like to go back in the past and say, what are your greatest past regrets or regret? Have you got any?
No, now that Karen is living with me, I haven't got any. Now, that's personal.
No book that you wish that you had written?
If
might never be written?
No, all I can say is this. I'm probably not going to live long enough to write all the stories I want to tell. I just finished one novel called The Pirate, which is the story of a modern-day Arab, the Arab emerging into our society. I want to do another book, and it's called The Lonely Lady. And this is the story of the woman of today, trapped by her femaleness, so that her creative talent and all these things she feels can't emerge, the whole attitude of men toward the threatening woman, the woman of intelligence.
I'm afraid we're threatened with the onset of time. I must say goodbye.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.